The music never stopped. In the heart of Ibiza's nightlife at Patcha, one of the island's most exclusive clubs, beats pulsed through the strobe-lit VIP area. But amid the euphoria, one man stood still. Eddie Burton didn't resist. No shouts, no confusion. Just a silent, cold understanding as Spanish authorities moved in. He looked like any other tourist, young, clean-cut, a regular 20-something. But the name on their warrant wasn't ordinary. It belonged to someone invisible, someone who shouldn't have existed, at least not under that name, not in that country. Burton, at only 23, wasn't some street-level dealer. He was the quiet architect behind a trafficking network responsible for flooding the UK with heroin, cocaine, ketamine, and cannabis. He never drove the lorries or carried the drugs, but everything moved because he allowed it to. His prints weren't just on packages, they were on the entire system. After months of digital tracking, international coordination, and a sting in one of Europe's most chaotic nightlife hubs, the operation crumbled. The kingpin didn't run. He had always built his empire to be controlled, not chaotic. But even empires fall. Before the millions, before the club lights, before the surveillance, he was just a boy from Liverpool, 10 years old, school uniform loose-fitting, sneakers 2 sizes too large, and already part of something bigger than he understood. His initiation was quiet. A walk, a handoff, a nod from an older teen. Nothing grand, nothing that raised alarm. But it was the start of everything. To those around him, he looked harmless. That was precisely the point. Older gang members used his appearance as camouflage, a baby-faced boy moving unnoticed through estates and alleyways, first as a courier, then a watcher. By 13, he was no longer taking instructions. He was analyzing, learning, adapting. While others flaunted what they had, Burton stayed silent. He didn't crave attention. He craved control. Family members later recalled him as difficult, too smart, too restless. But there was method beneath his defiance. At 16, the school bag that once held textbooks carried encrypted phones instead. He had stopped running errands. Now, he was giving orders. Liverpool gave him his training ground, but Amsterdam would provide the scale. At 19, he disappeared, not in a blaze, but in silence. No missing persons report, no farewell. He slipped into the system abroad. A short flight, a furnished apartment, a new identity. And in the shadows of Amsterdam, he began to build. Burton wasn't looking for street wars or notoriety. He wanted structure. In a city full of trade and transport, he laid down the foundations of a logistics empire. Not with guns, but with spreadsheets. Not with crews, but with contacts. He lived minimally. Short-term rentals, rotating numbers, no ties that lasted more than a few weeks. He studied ferry schedules, truck routes, border patrol habits. Where others made noise, Burton made systems. From Amsterdam, he extended into Spain. A villa here, a contact there. Sunlight and silence, the perfect cover. He recruited couriers with clean records, hired drivers who asked no questions, and compartmentalized every task. No one saw the full operation, only he did. He wasn't trying to be feared, he was trying to vanish. Back in Liverpool, one person kept the engine running, Sian Banks. To the outside world, she was just another influencer in the making. Her Instagram showed yacht trips, designer bags, poolside photos, a lifestyle curated to seem detached from the grime of crime. But behind the filtered selfies was a woman managing international shipments of narcotics. She wasn't in the background. She was the bridge between Burton's remote network and the UK's streets. She sourced couriers, booked flights, changed drop-off points, and laundered money. Between June 2022 and October 2023, she flew to Amsterdam and Spain monthly. Always alone, always brief. On at least 2 trips, she brought more than souvenirs. Phone data later revealed she carried ketamine and cocaine, concealed in luggage that blended in with other travelers. She wasn't a mule, she was a strategist. And in Burton's absence from the UK, she became essential. The network might have remained invisible, until 2 lorries crossed into Dover. The first seizure came on July 3, 2022. Officers stopped a truck for what should have been a routine check. What they found beneath the cargo was anything but ordinary: 90 kilograms of ketamine and 50 kilograms of cocaine. 6 weeks later, another lorry, different driver, same destination. This time, the drugs were concealed inside a specially modified fuel tank, an operation that required engineering skill and detailed planning. Inside, 142 kilograms of cocaine and 25 kilograms of heroin. Combined street value, £20 million. The drivers had no answers, but the evidence did. Forensic analysis found Burton's fingerprints on the packaging, Banks's on the ketamine. They had never been caught at the border, but now, their connection was undeniable. Their communication had been encrypted: Signal, WhatsApp, burner phones, aliases. But encryption only delays exposure, it doesn't erase it. After the seizures, investigators launched full digital sweeps. Flight logs, message logs, hotel check-ins, all began to tell a consistent story. Burton and Banks spoke in code, using emojis and nicknames. Snowflake meant cocaine, tabs for MDMA. They spoke like professionals, not drug dealers, but managers. They coordinated kilos the way businesses coordinate freight. And always, the timelines matched. Each time Banks flew out, a shipment followed. Each time Burton changed location, devices went dark, but the system kept receipts, boarding passes, check-ins, payment records. In hiding, they felt safe, but invisibility was only temporary. When the pandemic grounded most of Europe, Banks found a way to keep moving, not just herself, but her couriers too. Investigators discovered a secondary operation: forged COVID documents, fake vaccine cards, altered PCR test results, bogus travel exemptions. On paper, it looked like opportunistic fraud. But in practice, it was another arm of the empire. The documents didn't move the drugs directly, but they moved her. And that movement kept the network alive while the world stood still. It wasn't about money. It was about momentum. After the second lorry, Burton vanished again. But this time, law enforcement wasn't far behind. The National Crime Agency had enough evidence to launch a multinational manhunt. Working with authorities in Spain, the Netherlands, and Germany, they tracked movements, reviewed flight records, intercepted digital messages. By mid-2023, they believed he was back in Ibiza. Banks had flown in. Local sources confirmed sightings. August 2023, Spanish police moved in. Inside the VIP section of Patcha, Burton stood under flashing lights. He used a fake ID, but fingerprints confirmed the truth. He was arrested without incident. The man who orchestrated a £20 million network wasn't taken down in a gunfight or a raid. He was pulled from a nightclub, quietly, efficiently. Spanish authorities held him while the UK prepared its extradition request. It passed through Germany and was finalised by March 2024. Burton arrived back in Britain in handcuffs. The evidence was overwhelming. Traces on drugs, digital messages, encrypted chats, coordinated flights. Each line added weight to the case. Banks had already been arrested in December 2023 at her Liverpool home. No chase, no panic. Just a knock at the door and the seizure of her devices. What the messages had hinted at, the forensic evidence now confirmed. In February 2025, the pair stood in the dock at Canterbury Crown Court. Not together, not defiant, just two individuals facing the collapse of an empire built in silence. Burton pleaded guilty to 4 counts of drug importation: heroin, cocaine, ketamine, cannabis. He wasn't portrayed as reckless, he was portrayed as strategic, an operator with vision who built a multi-country supply chain powered by encryption and logistics. Banks pleaded guilty to 7 offenses: drug trafficking, money laundering, and courier coordination. The court rejected any idea she was coerced. She was called essential, a linchpin, a fixer. The judge summarized it plainly. This was the modern face of drug crime. Not knives and turf wars, but boarding passes, encrypted chats, coordinated flights. Burton received 24 years and Banks got 17 years. In a world where the image of a drug dealer often conjures street corners and stash houses, this case forced a rethink. Burton never handled the drugs. He handled people, systems, schedules. And from a distance, he believed he was untouchable. But invisibility is only an illusion, because even the quietest footprints leave a trail. The system kept the receipts. The fingerprints told the truth. In the end, this wasn't just about drugs. It was about ambition, about a boy from Liverpool who learned how to run a £20 million empire before his 25th birthday, and how, in trying to stay invisible, he was finally seen. That is it for today's video. What is your thoughts on our story? And leave a comment below, and I will see you next time.